Welcome to Healthy Point of View Podcast, where we explore the latest trends and topics in health and wellness. Whether you're looking for tips on nutrition, fitness, mental health, or anything in between, we've got you covered. Join us as we chat with experts, share stories, and learn how to live a healthier and happier life.
Welcome to a Healthy Point of View Podcast with your host, Sam Tejada. Today we have a special guest. He is an expert in the field of law, healthcare to be exact. This guy here, he speaks at some of the biggest conferences. He leads a team of expert attorneys in the healthcare field. Part of that, where they specialize in our industry, which is the health and wellness, modern medicine. And who we have here today, we have Jeff Cohen. So Jeff Cohen, how you doing?
Good, man. It's good seeing you.
Awesome,
brother.
man.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm glad you made it.
I know, man.
South Florida, you don't know.
With that traffic.
You have no idea.
You know, I went to the dentist today. Yeah. It was that time of the year.
Yeah.
Right. So I always love to keep like my teeth nice, especially because I'm out socializing and stuff. And, you know, part of like health and wellness, the like leading cause of heart disease is gum disease.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Because
it means I got to go more frequently than I want to go. My mom's a dental hygienist. I don't know if you know this.
Oh,
so
man.
I grew up with sharp things in my mouth all the time.
Oh, God.
She was always, and they did it old school. You know, they didn't have the ultrasonic.
I was wondering why
cleaner.
you had like perfect teeth.
Oh, they were just digging at it like entrenching tools in my mouth.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow,
all the
wow.
time. That was normal.
Yeah, it took me a while. So when I moved down to Florida, it took me a while to find a good dental hygienist that's like nice and gentle and stuff.
Yeah.
And I finally found one close to my house in Coconut Creek, and I go there today. I was running late there. Go figure. And she was a little bit rough on me, so I don't know if she was just mad that I was running
You
late
didn't
or
tell her
something.
you had to be out fast, did you?
No,
You're like, hey, take your time.
Take your time,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So today I want to talk about some of the stuff that's happening in our industry, the industry of health, wellness, the med spas, the IV space, the regenerative medicine. You've been in this field for a long, long time, which, you know, I think the listeners should kind of like understand how you and I kind of got to know each other. There was like some energy that brought us together that we kind of didn't even know about, which is Dr. Willix,
That's
you know,
right.
which, you know, the book that I wrote, How to Win in Modern Wellness, you have a chapter in there talking about some of the healthcare law stuff of what's happening in the space. Dr. Willix, you actually knew him probably well before I did. So let's talk about a little bit of like that relationship and about how you got into this industry and knowing the people that you know, because you've been in it for quite a while.
Yeah, 36. You know what? This is year 37, which is really weird because that's like, it's older than my kids. I mean, it's strange. Like, that's a big number.
You want me to
37.
scare you? That's older
You know,
than me.
when I talk about it, it's just strange. And it's weird to talk about the ages of my kids. My oldest one is 33 and she's married. And I'm like, man, I don't feel like I've been here that long.
Right.
But I've been here that long. Yeah. So, Bob, I got to tell you the Willix thing. So the Willix thing is, I was with a group of people that were talking about the issue of spirituality in the workplace. Like that would be a good thing. And it came on the recognition that the Dalai Lama is associated with a group called the Spirit at Work, which is the idea that human beings are at work and they need a place for spirituality to kind of be there and to be alive for them as well in the workplace. So we were looking at that issue, and in walks this guy that we're introduced to as Dr. Bob. And he don't look like a doctor. He's wearing a cowboy hat and he's wearing some boots and all that stuff. And he uses the word shaman a number of times. And through the entire first meeting that I meet him, I'm thinking, is it shaman? Is it shaman? I've never heard the term before. I have no idea. So that's the beginning of meeting him. And
Wow.
It opened a doorway into total life transformation.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
total
awesome.
life transformation. It was just he became a remarkable mentor, wonderful, perfect mentor for me.
And such an interesting guy. And I want the listeners to kind of really picture this Dr. Willix, because you mentioned part of it, like the cowboy hat. You're talking about a extremely smart doctor who was an open heart surgeon, right? That is a vegan and a yogi, right?
Yep.
Who's also like a shaman who pulls up on his big Harley Davidson wearing some like knee-high cowboy boots and a vest. And it's just like, what the heck is going on here? But it's just cool as shit. I mean, cool
And
dude.
in his spare
Yeah.
time, he's a triathlete.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
by
that
the
was
way.
yeah right.
Yeah.
At,
Like
at age 75, he was competing for the Ironman.
nuts.
Crazy,
Nuts.
crazy,
Wild man.
yeah.
The
So,
best.
so he was my mentor, and I know he was your mentor
You bet.
in different ways and whatnot. You know,
Yeah.
doing some of the natural healing, which I find that extremely cool. You being a healthcare attorney in our industry, but you don't just practice law in our industry. You actually practice like what everyone else is doing. Like you actually live, breathe this type of stuff. Like you're doing all the health and wellness stuff. Like you understand the natural medicine, the shaman stuff. So talk to me a little bit about that and what got you into like all this health and wellness stuff.
You know, I think it was growing up in my family. My dad's a pharmacist, and I grew up on a stool running a cash register, watching him make medicine. You know, the dry ice would come in every day, and he would make medicine
Okay.
and make syrups and make pills, and literally, I was fascinated by what he was doing. And one day I asked him, I was a little boy, you know, like, why do you do this? And he told me he just loves helping people.
Awesome.
You know, so I watched him in his pharmacy at a little independent pharmacy called Perrine Center Pharmacy. And I watched him change the lives of people. Like these people, it was across the street from a ghetto area, Perrine. And the people would come in, call him Dr. Harris. He's not a doctor. But for a lot of people, he was the closest thing to healthcare and
Right.
wellness that they were going to find.
Wow.
So he wasn't just filling scripts. He was like, let me help you find a solution to what's bothering you.
That's awesome.
And he, you know, I was born in 1960, and here I am in this pharmacy, economically kind of underserved area, if you will. And I just watched my dad treat everybody with remarkable respect. I never saw him be unkind or impatient. He's a remarkable guy. He's 90 years old today.
Oh wow. He's still alive?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
He lives in John Knox Village with my mom, who's 89.
Oh wow.
And my mom's just this vibrant woman. She's 89, remarkable lady, and she's a dental hygienist. And
Wow.
she just lights up being around people and loves everyone. And I tell people this about my parents. I never saw my parents ever treat anybody with disrespect. Never.
Wow.
And I never saw them treat each other with disrespect. They fought a few times in front of me, but it was never horribly ugly
Nothing
or
crazy.
scarring
Yeah.
or traumatic to me. You know, just they're remarkable people.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
they're
got to
great.
be pretty exciting to hang
Yeah,
out with them,
yeah.
you know? So,
And my dad was talking even when I was a teenager about this thing called HMO. And back in the time that issue came up, they would like Humana Gold, Humana Silver, and there was nothing else.
oh, wow.
And so he was fascinated by it. And so we would talk about that stuff around the dinner table, you know?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so healthcare was there.
You were
And
exposed to it from a young age.
Yeah.
I remember actually
Yeah.
you giving me a tour of your office.
Yep.
You showed me the I don't
QRS
yeah,
net.
the thing that your what he would mix the
Oh, the
medications.
mortar and pestle.
Yeah.
But the funny thing
right.
that you didn't mention is that little weird press that's on there too.
Right.
And
Are those
used
things
to
he
make-
actually used? He
Dude,
used
he
to use
used to
those?
make suppositories. I'm like, that's
Oh.
disgusting.
Oh, I remember that
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, man, I wonder who's getting those big ones.
Horrible,
Yeah,
right?
Because they had the different sizes.
But that was
It's crazy.
right in his pharmacy. The mortar and
Yeah.
pestle, that was the one he used.
That's awesome.
And the press that he would use for the suppositories, that's the one he used. So I have that right there in my office
Yeah.
together with his army hat. And,
That's awesome. Like little antique museum.
Yeah,
For farmers.
yeah.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
So I kind of grew up with in this culture where people just care a lot about other people and want to help them.
Yeah.
My mom's that way. My dad's that way. And that's how I was wired. I'm connected to them. And, you know, so I'm that kind of guy too. Always thinking about, I wonder how I can make a positive difference. And then this healthcare thing was right there. And I got fascinated by it personally when I was about 18. And I heard this idea that somebody could look at your irises and check out your current state of health and alter it, they tended to be chiropractors that were doing it. They were called iridologists.
Oh, interesting.
So I was fascinated by that, and then applied kinesiology because they would muscle test
Okay.
to
Yeah.
see what you needed. And I'm 18 years old. It's 1978. And I'm thinking two things. Number one, this is super cool, which really stoked my interest in healthcare stuff that works, especially healthcare stuff that people don't know about.
Right.
So from an early age, I wanted to know about what would really work for people, what would help people, especially if it's not something that's widely known.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like I know with like the whole kinesial stuff, became very popular when you started seeing a lot of people wearing the kinesial tape.
Yep.
You know, the athletes,
Yep.
and then you started seeing more of like that Eastern medicine integrating with the Western medicine.
Yep.
So, which I mean, with the years of being exposed just through your parents, right? You've seen just on the pharmacy side, from traditional pharmacy to now all this compounding pharmacy stuff, which obviously I know you know about it because you help us with
Yep.
some of the legal stuff when it comes to compounding.
Yep.
So that's got to be unbelievable just seeing that change.
Yeah. And then I would kind of guinea pig myself. Like I would hear about something, I'd be like, oh, I got to try that.
Right.
So,
right.
you know, for better and for worse, it's like, I got to try everything.
Yeah, that's
you know?
how
So,
I am too.
yeah, so I got to check it out.
Yeah.
So one day to Willix, one day Bob says to me, I'm complaining about, I'm tired at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon every day.
How old are you?
41.
41,
When I'm having
okay.
this conversation
Yeah.
with him. And I'm also riding my bike all the time, and I suck in the time trials. I'm kind of towards the end.
Okay.
And I'm riding my ass off, and I just can't really make progress in cycling, and I'm tired. And he's like, well, let's check out your blood level for testosterone. And I represented some HRT clinics at the time, but I figured, you know, I got to check this out. So, because Bob said so. And he says, congratulations, you have the testosterone level of a 70-year-old man. It's classic.
Sounds
You
like
know,
Dr. Willix.
all the sensitivity that you'd expect from Bob. He just lets me have it.
Yeah.
And I think it was like 450 at the time, total. And I'm like, oh, well, do you have anything for that? He's like, yeah, take down your drawers. And then he shoots me with 1 ml of testosterone. And I'm like, okay, I'll see how that is. And I'm like, I have all the energy I need for everything. Like, I don't want to go to sleep.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
like, all right, how do I keep getting more of that? So that was my intro into testosterone.
Okay.
And of course, over time that branched into things like peptides, and because I got interested in the biohacking
Right.
as well. And of course I had to guinea pig myself with all that.
Yep. Yeah.
I was doing the nutraceutical stuff since I was about 19, because I forgot about this, but I was a program manager for a place called Earth House in New Jersey when I was 19 years old.
Okay.
And it was based on the nutraceutical studies of a guy named Carl Pfeiffer. He wrote a book called Mental and Elemental Nutrients. And they had this treatment center for schizophrenics. And at the time when I was young, I really loved working with people with mental challenges, mental health issues, or they had Down syndrome or something like that. And I thought that's what I was going to spend my life doing, working with people with those challenges. So I got this job as program manager at Earth House. I read the book, you know, because I've got to administer the program. I got to understand this stuff.
Right.
So I start taking all these nutraceuticals. Well, if you flash forward, I'm now 40 years old. I've been taking nutraceuticals forever. Now it's testosterone. I hear about peptides. My buddy Bruce Bertman tells me all about those. And I'm like, oh, I got to have some. I got to try that. And so I start treating with everybody. Let me try that guy. Let me try this guy, just to learn and to see
Right.
what things feel like. And I've been treated by pretty much all those professionals that
Yeah.
you know.
You
about in the
know like
field.
everybody in the industry.
Yeah,
I know.
know
I
'em
always
all.
hear you bring the
I
names
know
up.
them all, and I love them, and I love what they
Yeah.
do, and I love how they push into, you know, what conventional medicine would call experimental. And me, it's like that just intrigues me more. Call
Yeah,
it
yeah.
experimental. I want to check it out. I
Yeah.
want to see what it feels like.
You know, everything that you're saying, it actually reminds me of Dr. Willix's last book, The Rejuvenation Solution. You know, he signed the book for me, and this is like right before he passed away. And what he wrote on there, he said, the future of medicine where you can reverse disease will be dependent on epigenetic testing, nutrition supplementation, and peptide therapy.
Mm.
And truth to be said, I mean, that's what's happening right
Big
now,
time.
you know?
Big time.
And it's happening, and it's happening quickly now.
It is. It is,
Yeah.
and it's accelerating. It's interesting to me, being in healthcare business and healthcare regulatory for 36 years. What used to be health was the only thing that was really available. It was just healthcare,
Right.
which back then and today really means insurance-based uh, medication and healthcare solutions, surgery and things like that. But what's happened in the past, I don't know, 20 something years is the emergence of wellness.
Right.
And now we have this divergence of healthcare and wellness. Healthcare is what's compensated for by a policy of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Wellness is what you pay for cash.
Right.
And there's this remarkable swelling of demand by the public for wellness. It's not gradual, it's geometric. It seems to be, but it also seems on the healthcare side that people's financial responsibilities are broadening and the scope of services is narrowing.
Right.
And so people are expecting less and less out of insurance-based healthcare, and they're taking more and more responsibility for cash-based wellness because they demand to feel better, look better.
Right, right. And that kind of falls into that, taking more of that proactive, preventative approach to your
Yeah,
health.
yeah.
So speaking of that, obviously you being as a healthcare attorney and leading in the industry as a healthcare attorney, what are some of the regulatory things that you're starting to see as the industry keeps on growing? Not just with the IV nutrient space, but regenerative medicine, the wellness side, medical aesthetics, the med spas. Um, I'm pretty sure you have like a whole arsenal of stories that you could tell us of things that are happening. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that are happening, what people need to kind of like watch out for, and get them really thinking before they do.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing in the wellness space is that it's so patient demand driven. There's something about the human spirit of wanting to be happy and healthy that's just driving that. And that's also the biggest challenge in the wellness space
Right.
because people will walk in to your business, whether it's HRT or IV hydration or regen, and tell you what to do. And if you're a clinician, you understand the importance of sticking to the basic protocol, which is diagnose, prescribe, treat, and document.
Okay.
But if you're a business person and you don't know about that, then you'll let the patients drive the protocol to a degree that gets you off the mark and puts the licenses of the professionals in the space at risk.
Well, I've never heard it that way. That makes sense, especially with Dr. Google that's out there, right? These
Exactly.
patients, they think they know everything there is to it, and they're walking in and pretty much telling you what to do and how to
Yeah.
treat them.
I think it's
So,
probably the biggest threat to the wellness industry.
wow.
You know,
Wow.
one of the things I also see that is interesting but also concerning to me is integration. And what I mean is the collapse of IV hydration, HRT, med spa, and regen into a single platform.
Right.
So we see people who start in the shallowest end of the pool from a clinical perspective and from a regulatory perspective, and they're just doing IV hydration.
Right.
And they say, I got all these patients, I may as well offer fill in the blank, HRT, regen, med spa. And some of that is also kind of shallow end of the pool stuff. When you're talking about Botox and fillers, it's pretty shallow end of
Right.
the pool. Although you can get eye drop if you do it wrong and do some other things like that. But when you're looking at HRT and you're looking at regen, you really need to know what you're doing, and you need to understand that it's a higher regulatory risk and a higher clinical risk.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not one size fits all. And I don't know if it's helpful to your listeners, but one perspective of a consumer is this, and it's my perspective. When I walk in to a law firm or an accounting firm or a wellness place, and they say they do everything, I'm gonna keep walking. I don't want to go to a place that does everything.
You want people that specialize
I
in a
want
certain area.
bingo.
Yeah.
That's what I want. So I want to know who's best at IV hydration, who's best at HRT, who's best at regen, and all that stuff. And it may be that there are some people that are great at all of it, but I'm very doubtful as a consumer I just want to go to the specialist.
Right, right. And I see it. I mean, with Liquivida, we started with IV hydration. And obviously, throughout my years of working with Dr. Willix and Centogenics, I started integrating a lot of these other modalities and the different services. So we've become almost like that one-stop shop. But I could tell you, as being in the industry doing that, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work.
Yep.
And exactly what you said. It's people are looking for those people that specialize in certain areas. So what we had to do is actually, put people in these individual departments to lead them and actually become the experts in that, that
Right.
department, if you will.
Right. And
So
you know what, Sam? I mean this sincerely. I know you well enough to know, because we've spent time and I see what you do and I know what you're about. You won't do anything just for the money.
no, no, no. There's a bigger purpose here, and that's
Yeah.
I think and that's where you and I vibe a lot, and we talk about different things that we're doing in the industry, which is not just like for us to fill our pockets, right?
Nope.
Speaking at these big conferences and meeting with a lot of other leaders in the industry, it's like we do have a purpose behind what we're trying to do. We're trying
Yeah.
to help people.
Right.
Yeah.
And to do it the right way. Just do the right thing, do
Yeah.
the right thing, and do the next right thing. And that's sometimes missing in the healthcare space. Like, it may be that you might have 4 times the number of franchisees if that wasn't as important to you.
Right.
But I know you're not putting something in place that doesn't deliver
Yeah.
exactly the way. I mean, even the way you lay out a facility is all about the customer experience and the quality of that place. And you and I both know, because we've been in other facilities, not everybody thinks that way, and
No.
not everybody puts that attention to detail and integrity in place.
Yeah.
And that means a lot to me.
Yeah. I
In fact, it
appreciate
means
that.
everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day I'm learning and
Yep.
figuring out how to do it even better,
Yep.
and collaborating with other people and figuring out how to make that happen. So now for the listeners, because we have a bunch of doctors,
Mhm.
right? Liquivida has a huge network of doctors, over 4,000 doctors that tune into the podcast. And then we got a lot of the end consumers that utilize our services that listen in also. On the consumer side, what are some of the things that some of these consumers, they get a little bit worried because they see things on TV? Oh, this is not legal. Oh, they can't be doing exosomes. They can't do this. They can't do that. The peptides, now the stuff with the FDA. Tell me something about that we could tell the consumers to give them some peace of mind before just jumping to conclusion with what they see about these regulatory things that are coming up.
I think the regulatory responsibility is in the hands of the provider. When the public starts looking around at what the FDA has to say about this or that, or the Board of Medicine, or the Board of Nursing, or the Board of Pharmacy, it's incredibly confusing to them because they don't work in that space. I mean, as a healthcare lawyer, I track all that stuff all over the country, and that's normal for me. And as a provider in this space, you have to do the same thing. So for a patient, I would say this: find a trusted advisor, find a trusted clinical advisor, pick a quarterback.
I like that.
Stop trying to be a clinical quarterback. I see it all the time where people, they think they can research in an hour or a day what it's taken people years to understand and synthesize.
Right.
And it's just a bad approach for the public to play clinician.
Yeah. That's like that saying. I've heard it since I was a kid. It's like every great athlete has a coach.
That's right.
You got to have a coach. And even us that are in leadership roles in the field, I have a coach, and I go to other people, for them to coach me on certain things. Now, for the actual practitioners in the industry, a lot of practitioners are trying to get away from traditional medicine. They're stuck working in the ERs, and you've seen it after COVID. People just got sick and tired of dealing with the craziness.
Yep.
What would you say are the top 3 steps that these medical practitioners that are just getting into this modern wellness world, what are the top 3 steps that they should actually consider more on a legal standpoint so they can actually structure their business the right way?
Yeah, I mean, I think assuming that they've got the clinical foundation in place, however they do that, whether it's, with your training or A4M or whatever it is that they do. Assuming they've got the clinical foundation, they really need to understand what the legal landscape is. And that's a function of knowing what the laws are and what regulators are doing with those laws. It's not the
Right.
same thing. And to that end, it sounds, I always resist saying this, but they have to find a lawyer that's what they do. Don't find a lawyer that's learning this stuff, because you're going to learn with them, which means you're going to get a little information and you're going to pay them to learn.
A big bill.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Find somebody that's what they do every day and they
Right.
know what the regulatory threats are. I think it's easy to see what the current state of the law is. It's less easy to see what the current state of the law is going to be. And somebody who spends decades in this space, their job is to read the tea leaves and the signs and signals to know what's coming and to
Right.
prepare their clients to meet those challenges. I always say healthcare, especially IV hydration, it's really easy to get into. It's really easy to get into. It's not hard to, it's not easy to stay in. It's easy to get in, not easy to stay in. Why? Because all of the complexity that you miss when you just put yourself in business is the complexity that you're going to need to stay in business. What's the scope of practice? What kind of regulatory pressure is there on the stuff that you want to use, whether it's peptides or testosterone? What's the current state and the trend of telemedicine so you can onboard people with testosterone? What is all of that stuff? And what are the winds of change and how are they blowing today? Because that's what is really predicting what's going to happen, the restrictions you're going to have to live with.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, it's really important to kind of, people say you have to kind of aim for where the ball is going to be.
Right.
You have to kind of aim for where the industry is going to be. And then you create more sustainability. Not complete because it's dynamic.
Yeah.
These laws in every state, they change at least once a year.
That's one thing, what you just said. Every state is different.
Yeah.
So, and especially this world of social media that we live in, you'll get a medical practitioner that you'll see on social media doing some kind of procedure or having, the esthetician injecting Botox, and all of a sudden you think it's okay to do some of these procedures or have this esthetician do Botox, and it's okay in their state. But oh boy, if you do it over here, it's like, I have a franchise in Arizona, and they're legally allowed to use naturopathic doctors. You bring up the name naturopathic doctor here in Florida, they're ready to put you in jail. What you said there is extremely important for people to understand. Depending the state you're in, right, you need to find an advisor, a law firm that can go ahead and get that information for you, a law firm that does that, which I know one. Right?
Yeah.
One that I use quite frequently. So, but you guys are fantastic at that. Jeff, one of the things that keeps getting brought up to me, and you and I have talked about this multiple times. I had a friend of mine who's a state representative that reached back out to me, because this thing is back on the table.
I know.
Right?
You talk about this law?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. With the IV hydration. And I think a lot of people are just like wondering what the heck is happening.
Yeah.
Right? Give us a little bit, so people can kind of understand, this whole mess and kind of what can happen, what might not happen, what some of these IV hydration clinics should be doing to prepare for it, how they can support, the rest of the people that are trying to, go against it or whatever. Like, let's just talk about it.
The comment that makes sense to make is that people need to be aware of the landscape within which regulations happen. If you want to be in a healthcare business, you need to understand how the law happens. People say, there's two things in life you don't want to see being made. One is sausage and the other is law. But it's really, really true. And the Belay case is exactly one of those examples. And it's a great example, not just for Florida, but all over the country. There was a young lady, she was studying to be a nurse. She worked in a physician's office that was doing IV hydration, among other things. And the physician staff administered an overdose of selenium
Wow.
and killed her, killed
Oh,
this young
man.
woman. It was horrible. The compound pharmacy, which supplied the bag, the IV bag, did what they always did. They provide a sterile bag. It gets stored in the physician's office. The physician gets it, hangs it, and the physician staff injects an overdose of selenium and kills this young woman. Really, what you have is a medical malpractice situation. Is it a situation that compels a closer look at the pharmacy and say maybe the pharmacy isn't doing things right? It does not. It has nothing to do with the pharmacy.
Right.
Did the physician get sued? They did not. The technical reason is that the steps necessary to sue the doctor were not taken. So all that was left to the family of the nurse was to sue the pharmacy, and so the pharmacy ended up writing a check to settle on a confidential basis. So they settled the case. So really what you have is a medical malpractice situation.
Right.
And what happens? A legislator says, I'm going to put together a law that really regulates this industry, the implication being that the IV hydration industry is problematic from a clinical quality or safety perspective. And you know what? If the reason for that assumption is the Belay case, that's absolutely misplaced.
Wow.
It's absolute nonsense. And one of the things that people need to understand, and I think they do in our culture because of social media and the info platforms that are so robust, legislators get in office and stay in office. That's their primary drive. Get in office, stay in office.
Stay in office, right.
They have to earn that. You have to champion an issue. You have to be the people's protector in the area that you represent.
Right.
And that's understandable. But they sometimes take an issue that isn't an issue and ride that three-legged horse into the legislature. They drop into the legislative process a proposal to fix something that doesn't necessarily need to be fixed. And if you look at that law, did it have a compound pharmacy person at the table making sure that that law was well done? Nope. Did it have an IV hydration nurse at the table giving input to create a really great bill and maybe a very good law to protect the industry and patients? Nope.
Wow.
Did it have a physician at the table with right clinical input to really define the problem and solve a problem? Not at all.
Wow. So you got a bunch of people making these new regulations that know nothing about what they're putting
Yep.
together.
So
That's crazy.
So what you get is you get legislative junk food, empty calories.
Right.
That's what we got. So I look at that, and of course I wrote on it because it pisses me off. It's like, how is it that this is allowed to happen? And of course, the bottom line is, you know what? If the industry doesn't align and doesn't communicate with the newspaper, doesn't communicate with the legislature, then what do you expect the legislature to do? They're going to take the information they got, they're going to do the best they can.
Yeah, right.
It's like garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
That law is garbage.
Wow.
It's garbage.
Yeah, because ultimately the situation that occurred, that can happen with any medication.
And it happens. Yeah. And so when you look at, for example, the FDA list, when they came out with the peptide list, and they're targeting what? BPC 157?
Right.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And if you look at the FDA comments for half of this stuff on the peptide list, it says, well, we can find no evidence that it's good, and we can find no evidence that it's bad, so therefore it's suspect.
Well, with no adverse effects or anything. They're
It's
just making don't produce it anymore because we don't have anything. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Give me the good or the bad. They don't have either.
But if you see that and you understand that, and you understand that's how law gets made, okay, you can deal with the reality of it.
That's
what does
scary.
that require? It requires the industry to come together and to communicate with these lawmaking bodies, to be a source of expertise, and really help them sharpen their pen, define problems that really exist, and then solve those problems in an effective way.
Right.
That's what the industry has to do.
Yeah.
IV hydration providers and other wellness providers, they either need to define quality for themselves, or it's going to get defined at them
Right.
by people who have no background, no qualifications to do it, which is exactly what we see in the Belay case.
And we don't want that.
No.
So, and you already know how I am. I'm gonna take a stance to it, and I'm gonna push collectively with other people in the industry to get the right message out. So
Good. Yeah.
that's where I'm at with it. But this is good coming from you because I get asked this question about this stuff almost every single day. I get a text message and
Yeah.
people are asking me, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's like, well, I'm not really the guy to give you the advice on it, but I think this podcast that I'm going to do will kind of give you a little bit of clarification. But the most important part that I want people to kind of take out of what you said is we have to stay united and work together towards making sure that we end up regulating ourselves rather than someone else starting to regulate us. We have to establish that.
Yeah, that's absolutely critical. And if you look at every healthcare industry or healthcare profession, they have organizations that do that. And because you can't practice medicine or practice nursing all day and also go up to Tallahassee and deal with
Right,
that stuff.
right.
You can't. I mean, one of the most bizarre examples of this is a media issue that happened in Texas where, again, a woman is working at an IV hydration place, takes home a Myers cocktail and self-administers and dies. And the press got a hold of it in Texas and talked about the dangers of IV hydration industry.
Wow.
But what really happened in that case is one of her coworkers was a homicidal maniac that injected
Wow.
poison in the bag that he knew she was going to take home. She self-administered poison unknowingly and died. Did the press pick that up? Nope.
It's like
They
a
just
horror
want to tell
movie.
a stupid story.
That'll be the Netflix that'll pick it up.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah.
these are some crazy stories, man.
Yeah.
Crazy stories. Oh boy. So this is what we're up to, and we got to just keep our right thinking caps on as
Yeah.
we keep on growing our businesses. So, Jeff, what do you see as like the next big thing for you,
Mhm.
and related to the industry? What's the next big thing?
Well, I think the next big thing is really AIVA, the American IV Association, the expanded role of AIVA and its affiliates into really serving as a roundtable for what quality means and best practices and things like that, and also serving as a voice of expertise for legislative bodies around the country and for the media around the country too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And as I've put myself that I want to be in a leadership role with AIVA, which AIVA stands for American IV Association. So these are things that we're going to be working towards, for this upcoming year. And
Yep.
I think all of the listeners that are listening to this podcast should really start looking into AIVA, and what we're going to share the contact information. It'll be listed below on the on this YouTube podcast, and
Good.
also on the Spotify and everything else.
Good.
But this is important for people to participate and be part of it. Having a membership for it is inexpensive versus what can really happen down the line. And it's always great to be kept in the know. You got a series of podcasts there that I always get people, I did the podcast. I get people, oh, I heard you on the podcast, AIVA podcast. I said, man, people are going on that website.
Yeah.
So, which is awesome. So, huge plus. Jeff, tell us something interesting about yourself that like the regular person would not know about. I always put people on the spot with this one. Something interesting about yourself that most people just wouldn't know.
I wrote a couple books.
Okay.
I wrote one with Autumn, my business partner, Autumn, called The Next 50 Feet, which is all about all the stuff that we learned in the personal service space in the context of a law firm, but it's translatable to any personal service. We did it because we believe that the journey that we take isn't complete unless you share all the good stuff, all
Right.
the secrets, all the value. And then I wrote another book called The Wolf That Wins, which is really,
Yeah, you gave me a copy of that.
which is really about a lot of it meeting Bob and what I learned and what it took me to and how it changed my life. There's an interview that I saw when I was a lot younger that really informs a lot of what I do in my life. It's an interview between Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. And Joseph Campbell talks about human archetypes. And I remember watching this, and it didn't really make an impact when I saw it when I was in my 30s. But when I was about 50, in my 40s, 50 maybe, it really came to life for me. And Joseph Campbell was talking about something called the hero's journey,
Okay.
where the hero encounters the dragon, slays the dragon, learns things from slaying the dragon, and then brings those lessons back to his community. And that became incredibly inspiring for me, to live the life, live the journey, learn things, and just share everything that I learned. That's
awesome.
the completion of that cycle. That's the fulfillment of this life for me.
I love that. And that's truly how you leave legacy behind too.
Yeah,
That's
I love
awesome.
it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Jeff, the listeners here, where can they find you?
They can find me at Florida Healthcare Law Firm. They can find me at Cohen at floridahealthcarelawfirm.com. They can find me on my office number, 561-455-7700. That's a good place to reach me.
And Jeff has tons of additional content coming out. One of the things that I was
with you.
disruptors, right? The industry disruptors. So,
Right.
all cool stuff. So awesome, man. Jeff, it was a pleasure having you on the
Thanks so
podcast.
much,
Is
Sam.
there anything else you want to share with people?
No, I'm just really excited to be here and great to create stuff with you. Some people say, like, what lights you up the most in life? And I say, creating great shit with great people.
I love
and that's
that.
what we do.
That's
and
it.
That's my best day, and I do a lot of those days.
Brother, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and there's going to be a lot more coming. So all of you guys, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, do all of the good stuff that you do. And again, thank you for listening in on a Healthy Point of View podcast. Check us out for the next one.